Thank you very much. I would like if you could identify yourself before you ask the question, please.
Well, I mean, cooperation in both those sectors, the economy and security, is most welcome. And that is happening both bilaterally and multilaterally. We are entering into agreements with more and more countries, particularly in parts of the world which have been relatively neglected up to now. And all we say is that these inputs are exceedingly useful. But what is important is a dialogue with this country to offer the kind of assistance which we consider to be relevant and useful. We don't want to be misunderstood for a moment as saying that we don't want such assistance. We do want it, we value it, we appreciate it. But what is not helpful is an imposition. So the short answer to your question is that having regard to the rate of development of this country at this moment, we need to strengthen our links with the world outside. Whenever we travel these days, we establish the building blocks of economic relationships. We enter into a series of agreements and treaties on the economic side, matters like the protection of investments, the avoidance of double taxation, on mutual assistance with regard to a variety of matters. With regard to security, there are more and more agreements being signed with countries, strengthening existing agreements, and also strengthening multilateral mechanisms. So that is happening, and further assistance is certainly welcome in those areas.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Aleid Wagenmaker. I'm from the Netherlands. I have a question for Secretary Lalit Wiratunga, and it's considering his very inspiring observations on Galtung's peace process, and especially his thoughts on going from a negative towards a positive and actually a self-sustaining peace. Galtung has observed that the military has only a very limited role to play in this transition from a negative to a self-sustaining peace. And I have two questions on this. What are the experiences of the Sri Lanka military in the transition from a positive towards a negative peace? And my second question to that is, looking at the 2020, if you wish, goals of the peace process, what are for the Sri Lankan military in this peace process, and how are you going to solve this? Thank you.
Sir, the second question, could you repeat, please? Repeat the question, second question. Could you repeat your second question, please?
As far as the second question is concerned, we have the 2020 goals of the peace process. What are your observations and thoughts on the role of the military in achieving these goals of the 2020 peace process?
Sir.
I think in moving from negative to positive peace, as we have already shown, the military has a huge role to play. In a post-conflict situation like in Sri Lanka, we have experienced how an army which fought the most brutal terrorist group in the world suddenly transformed itself to a humanitarian army, if I may call it so. Firstly, the fact that 296,000 people were liberated I think that's a very significant activity of the army. The very first activity, if I may even say so, label it, towards positive pace. Because an army which is fighting a terrorist group, to switch their mentality immediately to resurrect or to liberate those people who are kept as hostages is a miracle by itself. So the impossible has been done. Then the second part of the operation is also very interesting. If you look at, I don't know whether this is coincidental or whether this was planned, when the Ministry of Defense and the Secretary in particular, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, was given the task of urban development, frankly, none of us thought that he was an expert in urban development. Just 4 years down the line, I remember it was in April 2010 that the task was given. By 2014, the transformation that has been achieved with the support of the armed forces is tremendous. And I just want to emphasize that economic development, I said economic development is not the mere, the only aspect of sustainable peace, but it supports. But the very fact that economic development is being channeled through infrastructure development supports the strengthening of the social fabric. Just imagine if people were not about to move around, meet their relatives, build relationships. For that you need infrastructure. For that you need roads. For that you need transport. For that you need railways. For that you need good telecommunications. All these things have been done. And in this process, if someone were to sit down and put a quantitative figure on the role of the armed forces, I think it would be stupendous. It would be running into billions of dollars. That's the kind of commitment that the army has been able to do. So this transformation from being a that supports development towards sustainable peace, I think this the military's role is very significant. I think we have probably established a model which which needs to be studied, how and why it happened. The sequencing of it is really something that we are very proud of. The second one is the 2020 goal that we were talking about, probably even towards 2035. The military has already shown its supportive role in not only, you are only seeing what is happening in Colombo, but you go to the provinces, you go to the villages, you go to little hamlets where the military is very supportive of helping people. I have several communications from very responsible citizens in the northern province who have asked me to convey to His Excellency the President not to move the armed forces out of the northern region. These are very responsible citizens who say they are very close to people. They are very friendly towards people. Please keep them. And in a seminar which was there probably in 2010 or so, in a public seminar, a very respectable citizen from Jaffna made this observation to the Secretary of Defense at that time, not to remove a particular security forces commander who was there, and saying that, you know, he is such a great friend of people. So when civilians speak of the armed forces personnel, I can't see a better way of saluting them, a better way of honoring them as people who have supported the honest, sincere, sustainable development in Sri Lanka. So both these questions are very relevant. I think it supports my argument very much that in building a social fabric, it's not just the government, the civil society that can support it, but certainly the military. So the military, in this case, Sri Lanka, has created a model that needs to be emulated in post-conflict situations, needs to be studied, how it can be made sustainable, so that armies around the world could take a lesson from what the armed forces in Sri Lanka has done.
Have a question been answered? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. General Mehta.
Thank you very much. I have two short questions. After these very brilliant presentations, the first question is that the economic development in the north is categorized as 3 times in the rest of the country. And generally, from what one has read, that development has had a lot of benefits. Will either of the speakers be able to tell us that, I know it's very difficult to measure this, but has the government been able to measure what is the social and political capital in the north from this economic development? My second question is for Mr. Paris. Is the economic hurt of the international pressure?
Sir.
Well, shall I take the second question you addressed to me? You said economic hurt, that is whether there has been any economic damage, right? Well, no, because there has not been any action taken against Sri Lanka up to now. Of course, the pressure is there, and we have to expend a lot of effort in countering that pressure. But whenever statements are made which we think are not founded factually, for example, some statements in travel advisories, or statements with regard to internal dissensions in the country, things of that kind, we put out statements clarifying those matters so that there will not be misconceptions on the part of tourists, on the part of investors, that those developments will not interfere negatively with volumes of international trade and so on. So that is an effort that we have to make continually because of this pressure that has been exerted on Sri Lanka. But no, the answer to your question is no, because the value of exports out of this country has reached their highest level 2 months ago. Exports out of Sri Lanka never reached that level. That is an all-time high. Then I could also say this, that in the first 7 months of this year, we had as many tourists coming into this country as we had for the whole of last year. So in those circumstances, one could say that the economy has not been hurt. On the contrary, the economy is now growing at about something like 7.4%. And Dr. Jasundra told us this morning that the projection for next year was something like, he said 8.2, 8.3. Yes. Yes. 8.3. Yes. On the first part, you referred to the social capital. You know, the life in the north is fundamentally transformed. You know, 6-7 years ago, there was nothing to look forward to. It was all gloom and despondency. But today, all the schools and hospitals are up and running. The highways, the railroad systems. We are putting a lot of effort into agriculture, into fisheries, particularly value addition into fruits and vegetables. The Jaffna mango is world famous. The livelihoods of people have been enormously strengthened as a result of the development of infrastructure. Also, the chambers of commerce in Colombo have established links with the business people, with the entrepreneurs in the north. And if you're talking about social capital, there are other things that are very encouraging. That is, school children from the north coming here to our schools to play cricket with them, to engage in debates and so on. So there's a lot of interaction between the north and the south. And the general outlook for the future, people have hope and expectation, and that is very evident to anyone who visits the north. even in a relatively casual way, the transformation of the social scene.
If I may also just add a few thoughts to what General Mehta inquired about. If you really quantify, I think you wanted to know why we say that there is these 3 times the development the rest of the country. It's clear from the figures, the money that has been pumped in, and also North grew by 22% while the rest of the country grew by only about 7.2%. Maybe it started at a lower base, but that's a different point. But it grew certainly by about 22%. The second interesting question is that whether you could measure social and political capital. We wish we could, because then we would have quantified and told the rest of the world, and those who have don't even want to believe what has happened, we could have shown them. This is how this has grown. Now, I would like to take this political capital thing first. The very fact that people have the political freedom, they never had it for 28 years. They never had it, they never could go and use their franchise. They could never go and vote for the party that they wanted. It's just not, we are not saying that, one has to vote for the party in power, but any party that they wanted to vote freely has been given. That's a very important point. Then I would like to also to tell you the number of schools increased after the post-conflict peace from the earlier number that was operating, which means that more schools have been added, more schools are admitting children. So there is a huge difference in what people do. Well, this is from the perspective of the government. I think if there is an independent survey done, if people are asked to go and talk to the people, they will tell you. We hear from a lot of people who write to us and say, I went to Jaffna after 5 years or 10 years. I am a resident of Jaffna. This is what people tell me. This is what you need to be doing. So certain suggestions are also made. So to that extent, I think there has been a great renaissance in the whole of the North. And I think government's plans, if you look at them, is to continue developing all these areas. This is also probably a good point for me to mention that the train will be going to Jaffna very soon. This is something that people have been thinking that it is only a dream. So I think all in all, there is much that has been done, and I think there is an increase in the social and the political capital.
Yes, sir.
And this is with reference to the social capital that we've been discussing. I think one measure which could be there, which would be an indicator, often is that alienated people do not participate in security forces for some time. And their numbers dwindle in terms of percentage. The population may be much larger, but the constituents in the armed forces are lesser. That is one issue, perhaps, when we are talking about measuring social capital and the improvements, we could look at if the numbers or the participation in the armed forces is growing from alienated groups. So to that extent, just as an observation or a comment I make that, and I would request the comment of the Honorable Speaker on that.
In addition to a number of other indicators, I think certainly it shows that our social fabric has become normal, and people of any ethnic group, of any religion or whatever, could just join the public sector and, of course, the armed forces. I might be very personal here. I belong to the 1977 civil service batch. In my batch of 89 recruits, there were 14 Tamils, 75 Sinhalese. So that is the last time that Sri Lanka was able to have such a large number of this group that finally did not make it to the public service, because there was not only there was probably an order that anyone who joined the public services, the police or the armed forces, any Tamil for that matter from the north, was a traitor to the cause of the Tamils. So there were many young people who wanted to join the public service who did not. But I think now we are seeing numbers that are coming in. So it's a very good point that you made. Certainly this is an indicator of the enhancement of the social capital. Thank you.